Welcome to the Monday, December 20th meeting of the Dennis-Yarmouth Regional School Committee. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is a presentation from our grades K-3 math coaches.
I think you've met our Director of STEM Instruction, Elizabeth Pontius. And she will be coming up, and I'll let her introduce her team of K-3 math coaches.
Good evening, school committee members and members of the DY community. My name is Betsy Pontius, and I'm the Director of STEM Instruction at DY. Tonight's presentation is happening at my request. I am excited for you to meet and hear about our 3 math coaches and the work they're doing in our schools. As Director of STEM, it is my job to ensure that we have a strong mathematics program. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics set forth guiding principles which I use to benchmark our work. Tonight's presentation exemplifies 2 of these principles. Teaching and learning. An excellent mathematics program requires effective teaching that engages students in meaningful learning through individual and collaborative experiences that promotes their ability to make sense of mathematical ideas and to reason mathematically. Also, equity and access. An excellent mathematics program requires that all students have access to a high-quality mathematics curriculum, effective teaching and learning, high expectations, and the support and resources needed to maximize their learning potential. At DY, we have made much progress towards these 2 principles as we have adopted the Eureka Math curriculum, and we also use a benchmark system to test students in order to see trends in our students' successes and challenges. During tonight's presentation, you will hear how our math coaches utilize these 3 roles in order to further our successes. You will first hear about the coach as a learning facilitator. In this role, our coaches work to ensure effective implementation of our curriculum by delivering learning experiences to our teachers. Next, you will hear about the coach as a classroom supporter. In this role, our coaches engage teachers in coaching cycles. This one-on-one relationship is built from the educator's perspective and the challenges the educator faces in his or her particular classroom. And lastly, you will hear as the coach as a data specialist. In this role, our coaches work alongside teachers to make sense of daily data and move forward with instruction. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to our 3 K-3 math coaches. They work in our buildings Station Avenue Elementary, Marguerite E. Small, and Ezra Baker. I would like to introduce Miss Kelly Bowl, Mrs. Kelly Bowl, Mrs. Lynn Brown, and Mrs. Kendra Johnson. And I am happy to answer any questions after the presentation. I'm going to, while they get started, I will pass out some notes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So tonight we'll be sharing some of the roles we take on as math coaches. Let's begin with our role as learning facilitator. As coaches, we are listening to the needs and concerns of our teachers. Because of this, we have created professional development opportunities that we offer throughout the district elementary schools. These opportunities give educators a chance to learn and reflect on their practice. And with reflection comes shifts in instruction, which in turn elevates our students' learning. Teachers choose to attend our coffee and coaching sessions, which give them control over their PD, their professional development. Conversations during these sessions have been rich and purposeful. We've had a lot of fun during our morning coffee and coaching sessions, and we end with a mathy raffle gift for participants. We have a variety of topics that we talk about during these learning opportunities. These topics were created based on trends in education, conversations we've had with teachers, classroom visits that we have conducted, along with the needs of each school. Many of our discussions have been about fostering discourse in our math classrooms by creating space for students to collaborate, share their thinking, and benefit from the knowledge of the class as a whole, as well as giving our students time to productively struggle with problems which increase their metacognition or their awareness of their own thought processes. Future topics will be created based on the needs of our teachers and students. The ideas listed can change as we assess these needs.
Coaching cycles are an integral part of our work with teachers. MQI stands for Mathematical Quality of Instruction. It was originally designed for research, but it is a powerful tool to support teachers' growth. The ultimate goal of the program is to give students more of a voice in the classroom. It encourages teachers to push their students to make connections and learn how to communicate with them. During our first meeting, we discussed the teachers' hopes and dreams for the students in front of them this year for math. Based on our conversation, specific rubrics will be selected, but one rubric at a time will be used. To become familiar with a rubric, we select a stock video from Harvard's MQI library to watch and evaluate by using the selected rubric and the dialogue script from the video. The teacher will cite evidence from both to elicit a possible score for the lesson. It's not really about what the score is in the end, but rather using the information from the rubric to brainstorm small incremental instructional moves that can elevate the instruction and engagement of all learners. The teacher selects the instructional moves and justifies its purpose. These instructional moves are supported and modeled by the coach. This bi-weekly cycle is a catalyst for change and is personalized professional development, which propels teachers forward through self-reflection and in turn engages and deepens students' participation in mathematical explanations and practices.
Another role we have revolves around data. As data coaches, we are supporting teachers in using data to thoughtfully plan and facilitate lessons that meet individual student needs. This involves looking at different data sources, like end-of-lesson exit tickets, end-of-module assessments, and topic quizzes, to help teachers make daily instructional decisions. We also use math running records to dig deeply into an individual student's math knowledge. We're especially excited about Eureka Math Equip. Equip is a pre-module assessment that accompanies the Eureka Math curriculum. This assessment explicitly targets foundational skills needed to successfully access grade-level curriculum and determines students' last points of success. We first support teachers in administering these pre-assessments on student iPads 2 weeks before the beginning of a new module. Once completed, Equip automatically generates results and groups students together who need support in particular content areas. As coaches, we then help teachers analyze this data and map out just-in-time learning opportunities to strengthen these essential skills. In doing so, students can better access grade level curriculum and accelerate their learning.
Thank you. So just as stated in our district's core values, the core of our work centers around the success of all of our students. So thank you.
And I just want to thank our math coaches for staying late tonight. Their school day ends at 3:40, and so I really do want to appreciate their hard work and getting this prepared. Thanks, guys. Is there anybody that has questions? I'm happy to answer.
First of all, thank you. It's the days when there was a curriculum subcommittee, back in the last century. We not only did staff stay late, they also walked us through. It's very useful to learn before we have to vote on anything, because the curriculum, the frameworks, there's changes. And do you have opportunities, and if so, how do they unfold when you're working with parents or explaining things to parents? The kids, of course, are the responsibility of the school system, and the parents do the best possible. How have been your interaction with the families?
Thank you for your question. So in the past, we had set aside a night at each school called a family math night. And so through sort of a game environment, and each school kind of did theirs differently, that would be a great time for parents to come in, and then little conversations can happen. But obviously with the way things are now, we have not had those up and rolling for a couple of years. And so really it falls on our teachers at parent-teacher conference time. And our curriculum does offer a series of newsletters that go home with every module that are fairly parent-friendly, with images and kind of not necessarily the technical math language, so that they can support their students at home.
Just want to make a comment that you talked about those newsletters. As someone who gets the newsletters and learns about dots and squares and lines, and it helps, because you're talking about a new math that's being taught. People always talk about why we do new math, and we understand it's more about critical thinking, and we know that everyone here in this room has a calculator in their pocket, but it's more about a new way to think and making them critical thinkers. But I know it's hard for many parents when they're looking at K-3 math homework and they don't understand. So it's just to keep that in mind for all the teachers as well as the math coaches, that there may be a parent at home that doesn't understand. So those Eureka newsletters do help, and whatever the teachers can do to help educate the parents or inform them, because they want to help their kid as best as they can. But I know they say give them 15 minutes and don't help. But as most parents will probably say, they want to at least be able to know or check or look to see where their kid is, and not at times they may not be able to, as things have changed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. We'll definitely keep that in mind. Always looking for kind of deeper ways to engage our families as well.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I think we always should look at our math proficiency and care about it, and I think that by you being here and us listening, it shows that we really do care, and we want to make sure that we continue improving always and moving up. My only question is, how long have you been doing this program, and aside from COVID and the obvious problems that could have made a difficulty, in the years that you've been doing it, or the time that you've been doing it, how have you seen progress, and how do you see it going in the future?
So thank you for that question. At the K-3 level, we're going on 10 years with this curriculum. And so I do think that right now we are in need of a curriculum review, and I have started the process. Certainly, this curriculum, if parents find it hard, you can know that teachers also found it a transition. to teach this curriculum, but they also have some feedback about it that is proving to be true in terms of the language-rich I think I pressed it off, can be difficult for students to read. So we are certainly reviewing it. But to specifically answer your question, about 10 years K to 3, and then from 4 up, we're in year 4 or 5, I believe. It was around, yeah. So in that way, we certainly have had it long enough to go through a review. And in fact, the curriculum itself has, created their 2.0 version, Eureka Math Squared. And so we're just trying to take in the whole landscape of it and decide what next steps. And I do not do that alone. I have a curriculum leadership council, so that's teachers from K to 8. And so they will help work on this. And then we use the Department of Education has Curate, which is a site which is teachers who have analyzed curriculums, and so we can get information from that to help us.
How much time do the coaches spend, if any, in classrooms observing these lessons being taught? And how much time, if any, do coaches spend working directly with students?
Coaches generally don't spend time working directly with students. Their work is meant to go through the teacher to the classroom. However, with that said, if they are in a classroom, so when they're in their coaching cycles, and that is when they would be in classrooms, and that might be a variety of things. So it could be that they are actually modeling a new strategy, maybe a way. I think most of our teachers are very well versed in asking open-ended questions. The tricky part is when the students start answering, and then how do I manage all that input as a classroom teacher who has an objective, right? And so our coaches model those next steps. That's kind of where we are. But sometimes a coach might be in there as like a co-teach, where the teacher's deciding, okay, I'm going for it today, but don't leave me alone, And so in those cases, when the coach is in the room, and let's say the teacher then releases students to work, they may be there just like a classroom teacher to check in. But in general, our coaches are not doing sort of intervention or small group work. All right, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
All right, next on the agenda are reports from our student representatives, please.
Good evening, everyone. All right, it has been a very busy 2 weeks. Since we last met, the winter sports have started. First, track had their first meet last Tuesday, and they won by 2 points, so that was really exciting. They compete up at, it's a college with a W. I would want to say Wentworth. I know the track's blue. It's not super helpful, but, blue. Girls ice hockey, I believe, had one game, and now they're shut down for 2 weeks due to several COVID cases. But boys hockey is still up and running, and I believe they have their second game this Saturday, and they won 5-2. So the record is 1-1 right now. I do not know about basketball, I'm going to be honest. I think they're doing well, though. They seem happy. They're 1-2. Great. So NHS is having their candy guess contest that you can find at all lunches for second. You know what? Second, I'm not sure, because a lot of the students at NHS are AP students, so they generally don't have second lunch. But first and third, you can find them. And you can take, I believe, 1 guess for 50 cents or 3 guesses for $1. And it's this big bucket of candy. So if you get it, you win. Happy days for us all. Probably for your family more than anyone else, but candy. And the odd couple, which was not the Friday that just happened, the Friday and Saturday beforehand was a huge success. Oh my goodness. I went with a few of my friends. It was hilarious. They did a fantastic job, especially since some of the main characters only found out that they're going to be in the play about a day before. So they had scripts on stage, but they did a great job, I must say. Better than I could do. And finally, the Gingerbread Contest, which is something that the students look forward to every year. It's so exciting, is this Wednesday. 8th and 9th grades will compete during A block and 10 through 12 during C block, where B block will be a huge cleanup party. We'll play some Christmas music. It will be fun. You know what we should play? We should play the cleanup song. Everyone works better with the cleanup song. And it's $25 per class, and materials are provided, but although they are basic materials, you'll get a box of graham crackers, some frosting, and some candy. But you can bring your own materials, just no pre-constructed houses, because that's cheating, and DY does not like cheating, as all of your teachers' syllabuses will say. And I think that's all. So happy holidays, and I hope that you're all doing well.
Grace LaPlane for chairman, please.
It would definitely be a lot more entertaining. Thank you, Grace. All right, Joe, do you have a building committee report?
I really don't have anything, but as we started the meeting, there was a bunch of slides going up, and they're up now as we go through. I don't know, Carol, if you want to go through some of them, or David, you've got some information, but I don't have anything in formally.
So Carol and I toured the new building last Thursday with PMA and the architect, Andy. And it was actually great to see up close. As you can see in some of these pictures here, these look a little more framed out of building D, which is the back building. And it's completely framed out on the inside, so we could really see how the corridors, the hallways, the classrooms, the science labs, the bathrooms, everything are going to look on that back building D. And then as you move forward into building C, which would be the one on the left, actually looking that way, the exterior walls are all done, and they're just starting to do that new framing work of the classrooms and hallways and everything on there as well. And then on the front side of the building, buildings A and B, next to the elevator shaft is in as well. See, that's building C there. You can tell it's all open. It doesn't have the classrooms framed out yet. There's the elevator shaft in the middle there. And then as you come to the front of the building, which is the auditorium and cafeteria on the left, the gym on the right, and then the it's going to be a big, beautiful media center in the center of the building with big windows overlooking the front, is all completely framed out, but they're just moving back to front with sealing up the roof, sealing up the side walls, and then the interior framing. As you can see, the lower level is still dirt because there's a lot of underground conduits that are still being run and get covered in concrete. And they've got the auditorium seating. It's off to the side in that picture. You can't quite see it. Anyway, the auditorium seating, which is way to the left there, is also in as well, so you can kind of see how it's going to rise up the stairs in the auditorium. So it's really pretty cool. Yes, that picture right there shows it on the left. So it's really cool and exciting to see in person. It was great to be able to walk it because I hadn't been there in over a month when it was really just exterior framing the last time I walked up close to it. So it's exciting to see it coming along. According to the builders, everything's still on plan. They're not having any delays, knock on wood. And it just keeps on moving, and we've been having great weather, so the guys are out there all day, every day, moving along. So not really to take over Joe's report, but there's the building inspectors. Yeah. So on behalf of Joe's building committee report, that's just what we wanted to share with you guys this week.
Thank you, David.
That's really great to see all of that. Thank you. Liaisons to the boards of selectmen. I don't have anything for Dennis. No. Joe for Yarmouth.
Yes, Madam Chair, just one thing that has been brought up before, but the town administrator mentioned it again. He had been in touch with Carol, but it was in regards to capital budget items, and they kind of almost indicated like we were behind, but then the town administrator said he had been in contact with you and to get that list of capital items, but that was the only thing of note that I had recognized. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Assistant Superintendent's report.
Actually, the only thing I had was the update on the building. So
Wonderful, I love this. Okay. And our superintendent's report, please.
So most of my report is about COVID tonight. So I'm going to ask our lead nurse, Kristen Dwyer, to come up and join me because she is our medical professional. I'm certainly not a medical professional, and I rely on Kristen very heavily, but I do have my own little report made up between the two of us and some conversations that we've had over the course of the fall. So I want to start off by talking about the numbers, staff and students with COVID since the start of the FY22 school year. In September, there were 24 students that had COVID, 1 staff member, for a total of 25. In October, 25 students and 9 staff for a total of 34. In November, 59 students and 16 staff for a total of 75. And as of this morning at 10 o'clock for December, 52 students and 13 staff for a total of 65. We're in total since the beginning of the year, 160 students and 39 staff, making 199. Now, when you have close to 3,000 students and probably 500 staff members, it might not seem like a lot, but if you compare it to September 15th, 2020 was when we started the school year last year, and all the way through to June 19th, I believe it was, we had 217 cases for the year. So 199 in this short period of time is pretty significant. The commissioner has not decided whether he will continue the mask mandate past January 15th, 2022, but he did say in a recent meeting that with the superintendents that we would hear from him sometime in early January. Recently, we held a vaccine clinic at Mattakees for students, specifically ages 5 through 11 through Barnstable County. 188 people participated. It would have been the first dose. 136 of those were students and 52 others, maybe parents or I don't know who else. As you know, we talked early on in the school year about the Test and Stay program. That program, I'll remind people, is for non-vaccinated students and staff. If you're vaccinated, you don't need to quarantine if you're a close contact unless you're experiencing symptoms. If you're experiencing symptoms, you should in fact get tested, not necessarily come to school to get tested. Get tested if you're experiencing them at home. However, we do provide symptomatic testing, so if there seems to be a student or a staff member exhibiting symptoms at school, we do test that as well. We implemented both the Test and Stay and the symptomatic testing on October 18th. And so since the beginning of that program, our nurses have administered, with the help of Coastal Medical, 525 tests. And from that, we had 11 positives that were discovered. If we count today, I think it's about 42 or 49 school days. It's not very many for a lot of testing and a lot of, positives. From October 18th through November 30th, there were 28 days. 264 tests were administered and 4 positives were found. From December 1st through December 20th, this morning at 10 o'clock, 13 days, 262 tests have been administered with 7 positives. So you can see the 4 positives in the beginning of the year for that long period of time, and now all of a sudden in such a short period of time, 7 positives. Just to give you some ideas about vaccination status. I'm going to start with the staff, but what I want you to know is that these numbers are probably not really that accurate, because right now we're relying on people to come forward and let us know what their vaccination status is. I think there are a couple of things at work here. People are just not doing it all the time, and we're not chasing them because, quite frankly, the nurses don't have time for that. The other thing I think that's happening is that because of the spike in cases everywhere, including on the Cape, I think that our staff is in no hurry to take off masks. And so if you're not vaccinated, remember the commissioner came out with that 80% I think people got a little worried about that, and if we got to 80%, we'd all be taking off our masks maybe, and I'm not sure that people are excited about that. So at Station Avenue, this is just self-reporting, not chasing anybody down. Station Avenue, 94% of the staff are vaccinated, as is true of Ezra Baker as well, 94%. Over at Emmy Small, 67%. Wixon, 66%. Matakees, 67%. In the high school, 38%. So as far as student vaccinations, we're really not sure of the numbers right now because there are a couple of things at play. The state system does not easily link to our district system in terms of sharing the data. So there's a system in the state called the MIIS system. And that's where all of the students' vaccination information would be. But this is an issue that's similar to any other data programs that you're trying to get one data program to communicate with another data program. If I'm in the state system as C. Woodbury, and then in the district system as Carol A. Woodbury, they don't know if that's the same person. So if the data's messed up, it's up to the nurses to go in and double check to see, well, Carol said she was vaccinated, but she's not coming over from the system, why not? And oftentimes we're finding different names, different whatever. The other thing that happens is that some of our kiddos were not in this state. They might have been from Texas or someplace else, and they got a test in a stadium far, far away. And because of that, they're not in the MIIS system anyway. So we're having a lot of trouble kind of gathering up that data, and quite frankly, the nurses really don't have the time to do it with everything else that they're trying to accomplish. So that's where we are with that. Recently, the town of Dennis was awarded a grant to provide test kits to low-income people and families who reside in Dennis. You may have heard about this on the news. We're one of 109 cities and towns, I believe. 102, okay. We're working together to identify school families who will receive these kits. It goes through the CEP program, which is the Community Eligibility Program, which we used to use for free and reduced lunch, but now you know everyone is entitled to free breakfast and free lunch in our district while this is all going on. So, but we still do have access to that system, and through our food service director, we were able to get the names of our students that would be whose families would be qualified for that. So a notification is going home to Dennis families tomorrow through the principals, letting them know that their students will be bringing home a test kit on Wednesday rather, and that it will be in their backpack, and each kit has 2 tests in it. However, if they do test positive, we encourage them to still go and get a PCR test to make sure that it's accurate. On Thursday, I'll be sending out another message, as I did before the Thanksgiving break, just to let families know how they can report the positives over the break, because the nurses obviously won't be at the end of the phone, but if they fill out the paperwork, then the nurses can see that, and we'll follow up with them. So I want to talk a little bit about staffing, but Kristen, do you have anything to add before I talk about staffing? Okay. Okay. So just so you know, we've used. Guess I'm tired. We've used some of the money that the state and federal government has provided us to make sure that we have a solid number of medical staff to help during these challenging times. Each school has a school nurse and a medical assistant. We have one nurse in our medical, we have a medical program for some of our students. We have to have a nurse there. We have a lead nurse, here she is. And I think we have one float nurse right now. We tried to have 2 float nurses, but that didn't work out for us. Just like the hospitals and every place else, people are having trouble finding nurses. I think we're staffed up pretty good for us compared to some of the other folks that I've talked to across the state. But everyone's having trouble getting nursing staff. And the hospitals are really short-staffed as well. One of the things that we're contemplating doing, I heard this idea from another superintendent in another town when I went to a meeting recently. People are working with their fire departments to utilize the EMTs. Now what they have to do is they have to post for a detail, which of course there's a mandatory number of hours. There's also whatever the pay is. We would have to pay, and they would do that. One of the things that we find challenging is when we're in the middle of all the COVID stuff, there are other things that still happen at schools. Kids take medication. We have children who are diabetics. We have other things that happen, like somebody on the playground bumps their head. And never mind all of the typical things that would normally happen in a school year with screenings for eyes and ears and all other kinds of things. A lot of those are being pushed to the side because there just really isn't time for them. So we're looking for different ways that we can staff up a little bit better. The other thing is, too, even our nurses get sick. As you can imagine, there are many times in a day that our nurses are coming in contact with students who have COVID. And so sometimes even if they're vaccinated, they're sick and they have to stay home. Even if it's not that, there are other things. So I have a couple of recommendations I'd like to make to the committee tonight. Currently, for a 6-hour day, we pay about $20 an hour for a nurse. I think that's way below anything that you would see in the outside world. So I'm recommending that we raise it to the teacher hourly rate, which if our teachers stay and do something extra, they sometimes make the hourly rate, depends on what it is. These folks here tonight didn't get paid for extra for that. It's just part of their job. But I would recommend that we raise it to $35 an hour. I don't think that's out of the realm of where it should be. Recently, we had no choice. I needed someone for our medical program, and we couldn't get anybody. So I said to Kristen, offer the person $35 an hour. I had no choice. We can't have kids who have feeding tubes and other kinds of medical issues without a nurse. So that's one recommendation that I really think that we need to consider. Also, the other thing that I would like you to consider is the possibility of making this coming Thursday a half day of school for students only, not for staff. How would this help? Well, if we had a half day for students, by the time the students go home, we still have another half day for our nurses to work. If we are seeing kids up to the end of the day and there are kids that have COVID, all of that contact tracing has to be done by phone, and it would be the next day, which of course is the legal holiday. Now, I'm going to tell you, our nurses have worked the holidays, they've worked nights, they've worked weekends, and I think this would be a small token. And in addition to that, would possibly allow us to slide into the holiday break without too much fanfare in the COVID arena. Thank you, Grace. I knew you'd be in favor. You have to promise me that we'll have 90% attendance in your school on Thursday. But in all seriousness, folks, I don't ask this lightly. This is one of the things that the commissioner said to us in the meeting, was to find ways. He said, if you can, use a half day here or there, to find ways to give people a little bit of a respite. We know there's been a lot of challenges this year, and when you're doing this work every day, my hats go off to the people who are in the trenches with it every day. I'm just at the other end of it, hearing what it is I can do. And so I bring this to you because you really are in charge of the calendar, and you are also in charge of the budget. So I ask for your consideration on those two items. And that's my COVID report. Any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions for Kristen while she's up here? Joe Tierney and then Joe Glenn.
Not really any questions, but I do support the Thursday half day on Thursday. And actually, I do have a question. You had mentioned that the students will go home, the teachers stay and work with the nurses and. Okay.
Anyone that we haven't contact traced. I mean, in the high school alone yesterday, we had 4 yesterday and I think 3 this morning. By the time you go through however many blocks and where every kid is sitting and who they're sitting with at lunch and making all the phone calls and then getting the letters ready of 0 to 3 feet, 3 to 6 feet if you're vaccinated. You know, it's a little bit different at the elementary level sometimes, but even within, it still takes an insurmountable amount of time to get that done. So if we can at least have a half a day with no students to try and wrap up all of the cases that we haven't gotten to that take place Monday through Thursday, then hopefully Friday morning, we're not putting out letters to the principals to send those out, close contact letters. We've contacted everybody, and then should someone pop positive Friday or Saturday, we're only looking at a Thursday half-day close contact, so then we could contact trace on that Sunday, is what would end up usually happening. Because we do still do weekends. We're just trying to have a moment.
Oh, I know. I'm totally in support of it. I agree that, but thank you for explaining it because I think that's people need to understand what's behind it.
I think the other thing too is that 4 students having COVID could be 100 close contacts.
Right.
It depends on what classes are going to and who they're sitting next to in those classes and those sorts of things.
Right. Okay. And also the increasing the pay for the nurses, I'm in total support of that. I honestly, my daughter's a nurse, and you said $35. I'm like, she says, sometimes she makes $60 or $80 an hour, and because there's such demand for nurses in different things. My niece is also one of the medically fragile students, and my brother can't find a nurse for her. And, he's happy now that you were able to find a nurse that could pay, give her a good enough pay to be here, because it's very important to have nurses for those medically fragile students because they have to be taken care of. So I'm total support of it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm in support of all 3. I do have questions on all 3, though. You mentioned well, let me go to the half-day first. My only concern, and I leave it up to you guys, is in regards to logistics on these things, because you just simply know more. My only concern, and I think it's less of an issue now because of the holidays, that parents would be better prepared to address it as opposed to another time on short notice. So I don't think it will be an issue, so I'm in support of it. You had mentioned pay details, and it kind of dovetails into the pay for the nurses. Have we reached out to the fire departments in both towns, and have we considered that? And the only reason I mention it is if we're paying a pay detail or an overtime for a firefighter EMT, one, we're not getting the same standard. Even if we're getting a paramedic, we're not getting a nurse. So they won't be able to do certain things. I'm sure it would be a help. I'm sure that they would look at it as a help, and it has worked in other towns that I know of. So I'm all for that. But if we've reached out to the towns, and then simply the question of what the pay detail amount might exceed that amount for a less quality, less standard of care. So
I'll answer that. So I heard of this from another person, another superintendent, in a meeting where I was attending with the commissioner, and I thought it sounded like an interesting idea. So I didn't go super far with it until I, brought it here. But I did, because I was talking to Liz about Liz Sullivan, the town administrator in Dennis, talking to her about, the testing, the test kits and things like that. I brought it up to her, is that anything that she'd be okay with? And, of course, she wanted to make sure that we would be paying the bill. But I also, then she said, yes, talk to the chief. So I did. I called the chief, Chief Brown, over in Dennis, just to say, do you think your guys would be interested? Is there a way we could sit down and try to work out the details? No pun intended. Work out the details on something like this. And he said he'd float it by his guys, and I'm waiting to hear back. And if I thought if this was going to go in Dennis, then I would also contact the Yarmouth side of things. But I wanted to just put out a feeler first to see if it would work. But
Yeah, and
I think you're right. The detail.
No, I know that in a lot of towns, they did, back in the middle of the COVID, they were doing a lot of vaccinations for homebound people, and it worked out quite well. I know that the Board of Health in the Selectmen's meeting said that they're not doing that in Yarmouth right now to any extent. I think they're trying to work out, but I think it would be a good time to reach out to them. But I'm all for them. But you mentioned the testing. Is there any way that Yarmouth families, because we have the pre-qualification, from the food service and stuff, that we have documentation that we might be able to get some of the Yarmouth families the test kits? Or?
Sure. This came as a surprise to us, too. I believe it was something through the governor's office that came down that the towns applied for. I don't know what the status is, if they even had to apply, or if you know a little more about it.
I do not believe that they applied. What happened is Baker and Polito administration looked at poverty, below poverty, based on census and data from the towns and housing, and they determined 102 towns that met the threshold. Dennis, Orleans, Eastham, being some of Yarmouth was not on that. However, I do know that Bruce Murphy, through the town of Yarmouth, I believe, has applied for some sort of kits, for at-home kits to be distributed, but that's a different program than what was sent out by the Baker and Polito administration for these test kits, these at-home test kits. They're probably the same, but it's a different process.
Great. Thank you so much. I'm in support of all three. Thank you.
The only question I have is more about how do families notify the schools that their child is vaccinated? I know we talked about how the systems don't read, but I'm familiar with the situation where I was contacted for test and stay and close contact, and they were unaware of the vaccination status. So I don't think parents necessarily know what they need to do, and I know that pediatricians don't automatically send it out, or CVS doesn't contact you. I think there's a lot of parents who are starting that process, and I think it'd be a great idea to inform them on what they can do or how they should proceed, so that saves one call, or maybe it saves 10. Hopefully, it saves 10 calls from a school nurse or the contact tracing team.
Right. So for contact tracing, the nurses are the only ones that contact trace. The CTC, which is the collaborative tracing, which is what the state was using, that has been disbanded, and they are no longer taking any cases whatsoever. So CTC, like Boston, they don't take cases anymore. All cases are handled through the county, Barnstable County, who has a grant through Deidre Arvidsson, Maurice, Teresa Carvalho, and then all school-based contact tracing is taking place by the school nurses only. We have reached out. They do help us on occasion if we have to offload cases. As for vaccination status, so say we have a student that tests positive. We confirm that. We look up the child in SNAP, which is our nursing program. Okay, it's not in there. Then I go to MIIS. MIIS may not be in there because either the physician's office, CVS, Walgreens, wherever they got it through Barnstable County, even though everyone signed consent when you sign up for CVS or any other place, you're signing consent into MIIS, but it doesn't always upload right away. So it depends on how fast that facility or office or department uploads the information into MIIS. Once that's in MIIS, we can see it. It doesn't mean that, like Superintendent Woodbury said, that it always falls into SNAP. So there's always a point where we're always into two systems because there isn't always carryover. And then if the child was recently vaccinated with his second shot, say, and not been it's been 2 weeks, but it hasn't uploaded, we still wouldn't have, that may not be in there, so then we're still calling the parent anyway for the close contact, just to ensure that we have the right information. And then usually what happens is the parent will then send us an email with their vaccination card and go from there.
I suppose we could send out something to parents saying, if your child's been vaccinated, please send a copy of the card to school.
Right.
We could do something like that.
Right.
That
And
might,
then-
that might
and then-
help.
Yeah, I think if that would be helpful, we should do that. But I also don't want to overburden the nurses by them getting millions of copies of things that they have to enter. So maybe you could you could come up with a system for that. Yeah, yeah, okay.
And for testing, for the testing that we're doing in the schools, with our test and stay and symptomatic testing, we are utilizing our resources. So CIC, which is our company that they collaborate with us through the state of Massachusetts for our testing supplies, we use another system called Crush the Curve, which is where we go in and look up to see if a child, say your child's a close contact, is not vaccinated. I then go into a different platform, a third platform, and check to see if your child's been signed up. And if they are, then we test them. If your child is part of test and stay because they're part of a close contact and they're less than 3 feet and they get tested for 5 days, we look at that same system. If we have 10 kids approximately, then we contract with Coastal Medical, who is actually contracted with the state of Massachusetts to support us in our large endeavors of, say, having to test 18 kids. They've been to the high school and come out and tested, 17, 18 kids for 5 days in a row. They've been to Wixon. They've been to Mattakese Middle School. But anywhere from 10 and under for test and stay, we end up doing it ourselves just because the resources aren't always available from them as well. So that's another, we are utilizing as much help as we can get from outside. We are testing literally every day, even not test and stay, but just symptomatic kids that come into our office.
I definitely support the hourly increase for the nursing staff. That's fully understand and support. Unfortunately, on the half day, I think if we had announced this a week or 2 weeks ago or even a week ago, we could have done it. But I think it's too late for parents to get childcare. If you want to do it at the high school or at the middle school, maybe, but it's not fair to say to parents who are scheduled to work on Thursday that they now have to find childcare on Thursday. Especially, we have a lot of families who rely on, in the past, grandparents, and they're not doing that now because of COVID, or neighbors or friends or family, and that's not happening because of COVID, or so personally, I just don't think we can tell parents with 2 days notice that they need a day off before the holidays. A lot of parents aren't going to be able to get that time off, but when they've already taken time off for the holidays. So my 2 cents on that. Anyone else? Jen?
Parents submit the form if their child is test positive during break. Is there like a follow-up that happens after so the parents know what to do with the child because there's no communication with the nurses over break, or if there's multiple children in the system, what they need to do with the other children that might not be testing positive and what they need to do with them? Is there, when they fill the form out, is there like a follow-back email, like a generic one that can go out to parents that say, these are the steps? I'm just wondering what's the follow through after that email. Just because I know that first day back to school is going to be so stressful for the nursing staff, and then you're going to probably get overwhelmed with phone calls, and so just what's the process once that form is sent out or from the parent?
So that Google form is available, will be sent out through Blackboard messaging, right through Superintendent Woodbury. They will fill it out, then it goes automatically. I've already shared the document to the spreadsheet, because it all filters into the spreadsheet, to all of the 6 nurses, 6 schools, so we can continually see that as that feeds in live. And then our out of message responder really basically says that, and we are still answering emails. We're kind of picking and choosing what is the most urgent. Like if you're telling me that your child tests positive on Friday, Christmas Eve, we're probably going to get back to you because there's people that you've impacted. But the out-of-office reply also has that link, and it also gives you resources to, if you live in the town of Dennis, to contact Kristen Keller, who is the Board of Health. Also, if you live in the town of Yarmouth, to contact Maurice Melchiano, who is part of Barnstable County Health Department. And if you live reside in a town that's not, please contact your local Board of Health. And then I also put in other COVID-related questions or concerns. You can click on the barnstablecountyhealth.org link, which will bring you to barnstablecountyhealth.org, and it will give you resources and places to go get tested, what to do if you're symptomatic, and who to contact.
Great. That's good info. Thank you.
But,
yeah, that's really good.
every phone call is, a 25-minute phone call with every family.
So no, that's
because
great.
there's so many moving parts.
There is. It's a lot. And so I am also in support of the detail for the nurses. I think that's great. We need to be a little more competitive with that, especially during these trying times. Unfortunately, I am also not in support of the half a day on Thursday due to a majority of our students are under 12 and childcare, and I'm thinking of the parents and short notice and right before the holidays and that added stress. So that's my thought on the half a day. Thank you.
Okay, so Carol, you need a motion on the the hourly rate increase. So is there a motion, Phil?
I would so move that rate level that was recommended by the superintendent.
So that's $35 an hour, correct? Okay, for nursing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion. Tomas?
Can I just ask a question? Are the nurses under a union, a specific union of the school? Does that affect anything? Is my only question about changing a rate in a meeting.
Teachers are part of the nurses. The nurses are part of the teachers' union contract, but this is substitutes are not part of any contract, really, unless they're permanent substitutes.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll do a roll call vote on this, please. Phil? Yes. Marilyn? Yes. Tomas?
Yes.
Joe Glenn?
Aye.
Joe Tierney?
Yes.
Jen? Yes. And I vote yes. Okay, so that's the motion on the increase for the nurses. You don't need a motion on the going to the fire departments for the looking into the detail yet, right? I don't think.
I don't really think I need. I just
Okay.
wanted to get a sense of the committee.
Okay.
If I might add one more thing about the half day. I guess the only thing I'll say in defense of the half day is if we woke up on Thursday and it was snowing, we would cancel school. And parents have always had to figure out what to do. I think one of the issues that we have this year is that we're not being allowed to utilize remote learning ever. And I think that I'm going to tell you right now, if you thought the attendance was bad last year, it's at least twice as bad this year. Because every time somebody is a close contact, if they're not vaccinated and they didn't sign up for test and stay, they have to stay home. And
to add that, only 1,119 students and staff have signed up for test and stay.
okay, 1,119 students have signed up for test and stay.
Does anyone want to make a motion to amend the calendar to make Thursday a half day?
I'll make that motion that we amend the calendar to make Thursday the 23rd a half day.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion on the half day. Joe Glenn?
So I agree with you, Jenny, about the heads up for the parents, and that's one of the things I mentioned. Two things. Do you need this motion from us? I mean, couldn't you make the decision on your own? I know you always want to support things, but just like a snow day, you make that decision. We don't go to us. But secondly, can we break it down? Because I think Jennifer's point about 12-year-olds and the percentage, can we let Grace go home or do a, can we do the high school or can we do particular age groups is what I'm asking.
I guess I probably could have canceled it by myself. I don't really believe in doing those things, especially when I have time. I realize it's not a lot of time, but I knew we were going to have a meeting today, and this really just came up recently about the kind of level of the workload. As Kristen will tell you, at the hospital, they're offering nurses all kinds of things, bonuses, staying here, and there's no amount of money, honestly. Yes, to get maybe a nurse, a substitute nurse, I need to pay more. But these guys are working so much. There's no amount of money I could give them that would even make them feel better. We're talking about getting the job done in a timely fashion so that they can just at least go home for a couple days and enjoy their families. I wish we could have school with the teachers still and let the nurse, but as long as we have COVID, these are our frontline workers. And the commissioner has even said, and I thought this was kind of interesting, in our last meeting, he goes, well, he said, I know there's a lot of stress in schools right now with COVID and everything. He wasn't just talking about nurses, he's talking about teacher stress as well. And he said, so if I were in your shoes, he said, I'd give them a half day once in a while. And I thought, well, that feels irresponsible to me. I'm not going to just wake up one day and go, oh, how about everybody have a half day? Talked about it before Thanksgiving, this conversation. But, I think a day of school is really important to our kids and their learning. So I don't take this lightly. But I do see that in this particular case, I felt that I should, on behalf of our staff, that I should ask.
Further discussion on the motion? All right, we're going to do a roll call vote on a yes vote is to make a half day on Thursday. Phil? Yes. Marilyn? No. Tomas?
No.
Joe?
Yes.
Jen?
No.
Joe?
Yes.
And I'm a no. So that was 1, 2, 4 no's. The motion does not pass. All right. Carol, more on the COVID report or? Okay. All right. Yeah.
Unprofessional for me to cry. I have cried to other staff. My nurses have cried to me. We are completely maxed out. We are running at a rate and a pace that is unsustainable, and people will quit. We are tired. The people that are angry at us and yell at us on the phone every day, from parents to staff, is unbearable. That nobody should have to do. We're asking for one thing, to give us just 5 minutes to finish our work, so that people can go home. Everyone's gonna go home, and guess what? The emails are still going to come in. The phone calls are still going to come in. What do I do? Who do I call? Who do I say what to? And guess what? The only people that are answering those phone calls are the nurses.
We're tired. Just tired. Thank you.
I mean, I hear what Kristen is saying, and I am so sorry that this is where we are, and I'm sure that they are getting yelled at every day by angry parents, and I'm so sorry that's happening. And I wish that we had more staff and more time and more money, and that we could relieve some of this stress, relieve this stress and burden on them. I stand behind my decision, my vote personally, that this was not enough notice for parents. But I think that if this is really what we need to be doing, is closing schools early some days to give the nurses time to regroup, then let's put it into the schedule with more time and more notice to parents. I'm not against closing schools early some days to give nurses, whether it's Fridays or Mondays or whatever the best day is, to get the nursing staff more time and to alleviate some of this burden on them. I'm not against that. We just need to be, sort of proactive about that. So that's my 2 cents. Does anyone else? Phil?
If anybody did not know how much on a cutting edge of the pressures that are going on on the world today, we've had an opportunity to feel it personally, and all I can say is this decision is not an easy one, but I would follow up with Jenny's idea of let's do something in response to the idea of the relief to the nursing staff and medical staff around the country are gone beyond what was ever expected, and my respect can't go down and will not go down even as we try to contribute to alleviating the pressures. So I know these are not easy times, but my admiration for the DY staff has never been higher.
Thank you, Jenny. So I've been on the board, I don't know, maybe a millennium. Is that what it is, Phil? I don't know. And in the school committee is always, I felt, we've made our disagreements and we've agreed upon things and disagreed upon things, and we've taken good votes and we've taken votes that I don't think were in the best interest of the district as a whole. And I believe this decision we've made is not in the best interest of the district as a whole. It's Monday. It's Monday, right? Just like Carol said, Thursday it could snow. I'm going to go to church and I'm going to pray for snow. Because we're giving parents Monday. We'll send out an alert now. Or we can send out an alert now on Tuesday. That gives parents Tuesday, Wednesday, and half a Thursday to find daycare. I understand. I have 4 kids, and we've gone through the same thing when our kids were in that age. So I totally understand from a parent's perspective of oh my goodness, I can't find care, or I'm not going to get paid if I have to stay home with my child. I totally understand that, but we have to look at the ramifications of the nurses having to work on all day on Thursday, and most of the day probably on Friday, which is Christmas Eve, and then maybe on Saturday, because those numbers are going to start coming back on Saturday. They're going to be there, and those nurses are going to be there. Maybe. If it was me, I'd walk away and be like, you know what, this is not, people get to their maximum, And I feel that a lot of times that the nurses are at their maximum, especially for what they do. I just think it was a bad decision. That's my 2 cents. You know, I know that the nurses are doing a spectacular job. And the fact that how many years ago, it was 6 or 7 years ago, we had like 3 nurses in the district, 2 or 3 nurses. We had nurses traveling from Emmy Small to Mattakees, you know, because we only had 1 nurse between the 2 schools. And now we have this opportunity. We have a lot of nurses, but these nurses are working tirelessly. They're working, like she said, weekends and things like that. I wish we had given the vote to make sure that they were able to finish their job in a timely manner. Thank you.
I think we're all in agreement how stressed out and overworked everyone is, particularly in the nursing staff. So what I think moving forward, and they're doing it in other states and other districts, it's unfortunate that DESE doesn't, or the commissioner doesn't give us a blueprint or understand that. But there are schools that are already recognizing the demands and the load and having periodic half days. And the commissioner did not say no, he said maybe, or he was silent on it. So I think what we're saying is just doing it now without enough notice was the sticky point. If we find a way to recognize the critical periods, is it after it or a 3-day weekend, which is coming up in January, that we start regularly instituting it and giving parents enough notice, I think we're all in agreement on that notion. And I hope we do it. I'd be willing to be part of a subgroup of sort of looks at something targeted points or the incidence of cases increases, and then we pull and make an announcement and give people at least 5 days notice. I think that would have easily passed. I certainly can appreciate the need for notice. It was hard to come and ask for this tonight. So you know that I would not be asking certainly the budget increase or the increase in the paying the nurses. And I certainly would not have been asking for this if I didn't feel it was absolutely necessary. In a neighboring community, their nurse quit today. She said, I've had enough. It's a single school, so guess what? Now tomorrow, there's no nurse unless they can find a sub. I'm with these folks every day. I meet with Kristen probably 2 or 3 times a week. I, in all honesty, would not be asking for this if I didn't feel that it was absolutely necessary. You folks who've known me for a long time know I don't come here and ask for extra stuff. I just don't. So I wish you would reconsider.
And of course, I mean, I would love a half day, you know, fun. But I say this outside of myself because I can go home. I can take care of myself. My mom doesn't have to worry about me burning the house down. But this is much bigger than me and a lot bigger than many of the students here. My mom works at Ezra Baker School, and she's good friends with the nurse there. She was good friends with the prior nurse. And even she, who has 14 kids in her classroom, 6 of whom barely speak English, sympathizes with the nurse for how much she's going through right now and how much she's struggling. My mom can look outside of her own struggles and recognize that the nurses are struggling much more than she is. And I think it's Christmas. Can't we give this to the nurses? And I know that this is not my decision to make. I know that my opinion is just a student's opinion, though I must say, pretty great. But that's beside the point. I would like to be able to do this since they do so much for us. I think that it's our turn. Not saying that we don't do enough for them, but I think it's our turn to be able to give them a break. Thank you.
Joe Glenn.
I agree with everything Joe said. I agree with everything Grace said, and I agreed with everything the superintendent said. A vote is a vote. I've been on the wrong side of votes a number of times. So I always respect the vote of the committee. But I think in this instance, if it's at all proper, just so that everybody has a chance, if there can be a motion to reconsider, and if the vote is the same, the vote is the same. I think the nurses' impact after the vote is significant, and we didn't understand. But regardless of all of that, we need to send out a message to everybody, whether it's parents, to send out a note to tread lightly, that we need to support them. We don't need parents yelling at nurses, and we need to support them in every way we can, and support them in those other ways that we talked about earlier. So I think we indicated that we would do all of those things, and I don't think there's any member of this committee that doesn't support the superintendent or the nursing staff or the students. So Madam Chair, if there's a possibility of a motion to reconsider, I'd like to do that.
You can make that motion.
Motion to reconsider, please.
You have to vote on the motion to reconsider first.
Right. He's making a motion to reconsider, yes. So we would vote on the motion to reconsider first. Yes, correct. So
I'll second Joe's.
So there's a motion to reconsider that's been made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to reconsider.
Just one point, and I think Joe might have brought it up in his first discussion, is the fact, I think, this is a motion to reconsider the support of the superintendent. Like Carol said, she's looking for our support. This is a decision she could have made. She could have called, she could have sent an alert out now tomorrow morning and said, hey, we're having a half day. I feel that we need to reconsider this because of the fact that it's so important. And she doesn't come to us with a lot of stuff, and it's just something that we need to just reconsider.
All right, we're going to take a vote on the motion to reconsider. Roll call. Phil?
I vote yes to reconsider.
Yes, and then we'll do, yes. Just on the motion to reconsider. Marilyn?
Yes.
Tomas? Just on whether or not to reconsider.
Yes.
Phil, Joe Glenn?
Yes.
Joe Tierney?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes on that. So the motion to reconsider passes, but now there has to be a new motion.
I'll make a motion that we have a half day of school on the 23rd to adjust the calendar.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Discussion. Tomas?
I know there was already discussion. I missed my second part to speak. Again, my concern still is the parents who don't have the coverage. I know of many parents who struggle with that every day. We don't have before care and after care at many of our schools, or if any. And I know parents who are paying people to watch their kids. They're putting neighbors at risk who are older. They're hiring kids they don't know. They're using every favor in the book, and they've been doing that for 6 months. And I know their struggle, and they go by the school calendar, and they ask when the days are off, and they're spending their money or their vacation time to do it. So, my original, it wasn't because of I don't understand or respect what the nurses are doing. I do, and I've been through the process of test and stay, and I've seen what happens, and I've seen how hard the nurses work. It's not the ability of that, but we talked about the 3,000 students in our district. You're talking that's probably 2,000 parents, if not more, who arrange their schedule based on the calendar. And it's just hard to, I know it making me think more. I know it's Monday night, and I know we can get something out on Tuesday morning, but it'll just be more time that people are taking out of their vacation times, their personal time, or asking more favors to someone during a holiday when there's a lot less people around because people are already leaving for the holidays. So that just continues to be my concern.
No, you may not. Further discussion. Joe?
Jenny, thank you. Carol, you might not have the answer, and Kristen might have had it. close contact phone calls. Any idea how many we've made? I mean, I can just imagine, but I'm not asking for an exact number.
No,
because
I don't, I'm sorry, Joe, I don't have any number, but what I know that Kristen is talking about is that when you have to tell a parent that they have to come and take their kid home for 8 days, test on day 5, et cetera, if you think there's an impact, that's a huge impact. And then you say, but you didn't sign up for test and stay. Well, can I do it now sometimes? And the answer to that is no, because it has to go through the state system.
Correct.
I mean, we've tried to fudge the rules as best we can so that we can include all of our kids. But believe me, this isn't a first situation here. We've had a lot of situations with our nurses that have, that's exactly why the stress level is where it is.
Right.
Because there's really no, and like I said, 4 kids with COVID can be in a high school, 20 close contacts because at
Right.
lunch they were with these 3.
Right, so that's
in
25,
first
that's
period they
25
were-
phone calls right there that
Right.
the nurse has to make.
And
one
oftentimes
person.
those phone calls are 15, 20, 25 minutes, as Kristen said, because then parents don't really remember all the rules. Gosh, I can barely remember all the rules, and I live it every day.
Right.
Well, what do you mean they have to stay? Well, for how long? Or when do they get tested? You know, I'm just saying, it's been a heavy lift.
And to get to, Tomas's, just comments about having enough time and things like that, what happens if a student goes and tests and hasn't been vaccinated and you call the parents and say you have to come pick them up? There isn't 4 days notice beforehand. There's literally, you're sitting at work and you get that phone call and you got to go pick your son or daughter up, and then you have to stay home because they have to stay home. So, again, I understand, I totally understand it from a parent's perspective. I know it's difficult. But, it's not like we're giving no time whatsoever. We're giving 2 days, 2.5 days to try to work something out. I just feel that just the benefit of having a half day of school on Thursday outweighs the negative of having to get what could happen, so.
But, Joe, I think, we all have like this much as parents, as working parents, as 2 working parents, we have this much capacity for emergency situations. And if we are holding in reserve somebody to watch our kid for that emergency snow day or that emergency day our kid is sent home with sick with COVID, or this is an avoidable emergency for parents this time. So, and for some parents, it's not even a matter of using sick time or vacation time or personal time or calling in a favor. They don't have any of those. So, some of us are privileged to have those things. Further discussion. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We asked that. I don't know what, Carol, you think about that, about just doing Matakes in the high school half days. Would that be of any help, or would that just cause more drama?
I don't know about causing drama.
That some kids, some go and some don't.
Yeah, I think we have to stick together as a district on this one.
Okay, further discussion. Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote on this, please. Phil? Your yes vote is for a half day.
Yes, I vote for yes on the half day.
Marilyn?
No.
Tomas?
No.
Joe? Joe?
Yes.
Jen? And I vote no. It's the same as before. Next is the consent agenda. There are 2 things on the agenda, on the consent agenda tonight. A memo from Principal Bovino at Matakees thanking National Energy Education Development Project and Cape Light Compact for donating 100 solar panels and motors. These items to be used in connection with the science curriculum as part of an engineering challenge. Students will be given materials to build their own solar-powered cars. Thankful for that donation. There is also a memo or a letter to Miss Studley of Betsy Studley of Yarmouthport, thanking her for a generous donation of coats, snow pants, hats, mittens, undergarments, and boots for the students at Station Ave Elementary. So very grateful for that donation as well. There are also the minutes of the Monday, December 6th meeting. Anyone move the consent agenda?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Bills, requisitions, payroll. You have a calendar in your packet. We're going to have a public comment period. The public is reminded that a school committee meeting is a meeting of a governmental body at which members of the body deliberate over public business. We welcome your attendance and appreciate your interest in viewing your school committee as we conduct our regular business meeting. The school committee believes that the school district community should have an opportunity to comment to the committee on issues that affect the school district and are within the scope of the committee's responsibilities. Some questions you may have may not be within the scope of the committee's responsibilities. And in that case, I will suggest that you send or give your question in writing to the appropriate person so that your concern may be given proper consideration. Individuals may address topics on the agenda, items specified for public comment, or items within the scope of responsibility of the school committee. This is an opportunity for individuals to address topics on the agenda. Each citizen will be allowed to speak for no more than 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Once you're recognized, you can step up to the microphone over there and make sure the light is on. Would anyone like to address the committee? Ms. Morris.
Look, when it becomes necessary for a union representative to come in here and say to you, something needs to be done about the math situation in the schools in the district, I think we are in pretty dire straits here. Ms. Pontius confirmed my thinking that this thing has been going on for 10 years in certain parts of the district. And I think she said something about progress has been made. Well, I'd like to know by what measure. And the union, of course, they were presenting the kind of thing that has been going on for 10 years. You just hire more bodies, clutter the classrooms with those bodies, and the students are getting no benefit from it. And this school committee is really so negligent by allowing year after year to continue in this kind of a situation. I don't understand how you can do that to the students. It really is unconscionable, I would think, that you have not demanded that something different be done over a 10-year period to get us off the dime, so to speak. It's just incredible to me. And as I said, the unions are only interested in dues-paying bodies to be put on there, and some of them floating around in classrooms where the students then don't even know who's on first and what's on second, for goodness sakes. It seems to me that the coaching is necessary for the teachers, not so much for the students. And that kind of coaching needs to occur before the school year starts, a very intensive one, so that the teachers are prepared to teach. Obviously, there are teachers who are not capable of teaching the math in this district. That should have been obvious to you a long time ago. And unless you get your act together, I don't know how parents and even taxpayers are allowing you to continue this way without doing something different and something serious, because I don't see any progress being made at all. I don't know by what measure Ms. Pontius was trying to go. What I wanted to say when I asked for a point of order was, as long as the teachers are also staying on in the schools on Thursday for a full day, could they do the babysitting function? Or it's just because the students would be on the premises, that would not be a possibility? I don't know.
Would anyone else like to address the committee? Mr. Bovino?
There it is. Thank you. Just wanted to bring one more piece of information to the committee. We received 2 last-minute donations for the holiday season from various community members. So we wanted to recognize the Dennis-Yarmouth Rotary for their donation of $500 to Matakees Middle School, and also the Bass River Rod and Gun Club and the Yarmouth Police Department for a donation of $5,000 for teens in need. So it went to Matakees and the high school. So we just wanted to recognize those 2 groups since it wasn't available in your packet this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, that is the end of the public comment period, and that's all we have on the agenda tonight. Anyone move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.